Greetings, players! We'll start this episode of Explaining Mechanics with a view range and camouflage overview. This information is useful for beginners as well as experienced players. If you can learn to use these game features well, you will earn not only a lot of victories, but also a lot of credits. Yes, it will be profitable, since you can save some credits by not wasting them on shells or repair, just by improving your understanding of these aspects of game mechanics. Are you interested? Well, let's get started then. We promise that we will not only explain, but also show you how you can use this knowledge to influence your success. Every tank in the game produces a set of invisible viewing lines between them and each enemy vehicle that makes opposing tanks visible when spotted. The viewpoints are located on the top of the turret and around the main gun. When one of these view lines touches a spot on the top or sides of the enemy turret or hull, or the main gun, their tank becomes visible. You can spot an enemy without any help from your teammates at a maximum range of 445 meters. This is a limitation imposed by the game engine. The maximum view range at which your tank can spot another tank is based on 100% crew training. However, modules and perks are not included. If you make your view range longer this way, you will be able to spot your enemies sooner. Obviously, you can also shoot them earlier, and this can have an influence on results of your engagement. Don't forget that your allies can spot the enemy too, and might even help you destroy them. You may buy coated optics, binocular telescope, or improved ventilation for your tank to gain an advantage in view range. You can also train your crew with perks like Brother in Arms, situational awareness, or recon. In addition, you can buy consumables like extra combat rations, chocolate, Coca-Cola, or strong coffee to improve their abilities. Remember, even if you buy all this stuff, you cannot spot enemies more than 445 meters away. An obvious question is, why are there so many ways to increase the view range if the maximum spotting range is still only 445 meters? If you have a higher view range, you can spot enemy vehicles more easily. This is important. We'll take a closer look at these features a little later. Always remember this: a longer view range allows you to spot the enemy before he spots you, so you can take the first shot. The first shot is always important in World of Tanks. Experienced players try to deprive you of the first shot by training their crews in camouflage skills, especially the ones that move across the battlefield and the sneaky tiny tank destroyers. This is a very important skill, because the higher the value of this skill is, the less likely it is that an enemy will spot you. Then you will have the opportunity to take the first shot. So how does camouflage work? Each tank in the game has its own camouflage factor. The value of this factor depends mostly on the size of the vehicle. For example, it's really hard to hide the mouse or Object 212, even if you've completely trained the crew's camouflage skill and have a camouflage net. In contrast to those house-sized tanks, smaller light tanks and medium tanks can apply this skill more efficiently. A tank is always in one of three states, which influence its camouflage factor. 1. The tank is stopped and its camouflage factor is at maximum. 2. The tank is moving and gets only half of its camouflage factor. This applies to every tank except light tanks, which use their full camouflage factor even when moving. 3. The tank is firing. When you shoot, your tank's camouflage factor drops to almost zero. It's very hard to hide your tank when firing, especially if you've got a large caliber cannon. Guns with a muzzle brake have the lowest camouflage factor, as these direct most of the noise and flash downrange to dampen recoil. Your enemies can't spot you if you hide behind houses, rocks, hills, bushes, or trees. Furthermore, if an enemy spots your tank, you can easily hide from him again by moving behind similar cover. He will lose you within 10 seconds, depending on game calculations and on the skills of your crew. Let's take a closer look at bushes. Bushes give you a huge advantage by providing an opportunity to shoot the enemy before you are spotted. How can you use bushes most effectively? The first rule is, choose the bush from which you can cover the widest area, particularly where the enemy might advance. The second rule is, the bush should completely cover your tank. You can check the effectiveness of your cover by looking at the bush from the direction of the enemy. This way, you can see it using the eyes of your enemy. The third rule is, when you get closer than 15 meters, bushes become transparent and you can spot the enemy easily, so you don't have to drive all the way into the bush to make contact. The fourth rule is, when you fire a shot, all bushes within 15 meters of you temporarily become transparent to the enemy. So, when you decide to shoot, you'd better be farther than 15 meters away from the bush that is between you and your target. You can tell when you have a good position when the bush becomes opaque for you, but you can still see the outline of your enemy. The fifth rule is, the most important skill is sixth sense. If you are sure that your camouflage is good, but you are still getting shot, it means that the enemy is not only in front of you, but also to your side or rear. In this case, the bushes can help you. What about trees? They are also a very important factor. Tree branches can provide good camouflage. However, don't forget that the trunk will not hide you from your enemies. If you want to hide your tank, you must stay under the tree's branches. For example, trees are good concealment when your enemies are located on the top of a hill and you are below them. You should always remember that the fallen tree doesn't provide the camouflage. This tree just disappears. All of these factors work only if the enemy is located more than 50 meters away from you. Otherwise, the enemy can use the awesome power of Mr. X-ray to spot your tank, even through walls. We do not recommend that you let them get within 50 meters if you are trying to hide. In this case, you will have to move or take them out. Otherwise, you will be spotted. And now let's go back to the secret we promised to tell you. How you can use your new knowledge to earn credits? The secret is simple. You can earn about 50% credits and experience by just spotting enemies and letting your teammates destroy them. It means that your position behind the good bushes at Malinovka can earn you a great deal of money. As well, you will not have to spend any money on ammunition. This tactic works the same if you use your LTs or MTs carefully, following the terrain to scout the opposing team. The more times you can do it, the more credits you will earn. Unfortunately, a lot of players rush forward with the battle cry, "I will scout them all." Of course, they always go right back to their garage at the beginning of the battle. By the way, although some players don't like artillery, the self-propelled guns can earn a lot of silver for you if you spot them. Since enemies cannot shoot you until they spot your tank, you will spend less on repairs, saving you more credits. And you will also have a better win-loss ratio, because even the less experienced players will make the enemy team weaker by shooting the enemies you have spotted. You probably know already, but if your team wins the battle, you earn a lot more credits and experience than if your team loses the battle. Don't forget that the mechanics and economics of World of Tanks are based not only on bushes and camouflage, so do not always camp behind cover. You can serve your team best by making the right decisions at the right time for the battle you are fighting. We tried not to use too many numbers in this episode because we want you to be curious. More detailed information about the camouflage variables, the view ranges of different tanks, and the other aspects of game mechanics can be found on the forums of World of Tanks. Search for it especially on the Game Discussions and Game Guides and Tutorials forums. That is the end of this episode. In the next episode, we will talk about penetration. What weak spots should you shoot into? How should you park your tank to decrease the angle of impact? And why even the highest tier weapons sometimes can't penetrate the weakest armor? That's all for now. We'll look forward to hearing your opinions about this episode. See you next time.